Before we talk about the next UFC event and what I think you need to pay attention to on that card beyond the top two fights, of course, I want to look back at last week for just 1 second. First of all, the main event, oh my goodness, what a shocker it was that Anthony Showtime Pettis knocked out Wonder Boy with a Superman punch with 5 seconds to go in the second round, mind you. And also, I just want to say, I was wrong about Jussier Formiga being a gatekeeper to Deiveson Figueiredo, because Jussier dominated Figueiredo and then is going to be an alternate for a bantamweight title shot, it seems, or so Dana White said after the event was over. But this week we're talking about UFC on ESPN 2, not ESPN 2, but the second event happening on ESPN, headlined by Edson Jr. Barboza and Justin the frickin' Highlight Gaethje. Oh my God, what an amazing fight that is. But you know that this video series is to talk about the top 3 fights that might be flying under your radar for the next UFC event. Number 3. Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Michelle Waterson. Kowalkiewicz has fought some of the highest level of competition that the UFC has to offer in the strawweight division. In fact, she has a win over the current champion, Thug Rose Namajunas. Yes, it was split, and yes, it was quite a while back, but that is a huge feather in her cap. For this weight class, she has a surprising amount of power on top of her diverse striking attack. Just ask Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where Karolina dropped her or hurt her in the 4th round with a short right hand after absorbing all that Joanna could give her. So she's also pretty darn durable, despite being knocked out her last time in the octagon against Jessica Andrade. I mean, Andrade's just on another level with her power. But Karolina is fun to watch with her diverse striking attack. She's shown some pop in her hands, and she's known to finish some fights. On the other side of this fight is Michelle Waterson, who has a nickname that indicates that she's some kind of karate expert or something of that nature, but her first 2 victories in the UFC came by way of submission, and she has also shown some well-timed takedown attempts and scrambles really well on the ground, on top of having some kickboxing credentials, which she has used to her advantage to keep larger opponents at bay away from her. But where she really shines is in that grappling department. She has some big wins on her resume as well, most notably a rear naked choke that we already mentioned in her second fight in the UFC, which was over Paige 12 Gauge Van Zandt, which she earned herself a Performance of the Night bonus. If Namajunas retains her title against Andrade in the main event of UFC 237, it would be likely that Kowalkiewicz would get a title shot if successful at UFC on ESPN 2 because of that prior victory over the champion. And if Andrade were to get the title away from Namajunas, you could see a scenario where the UFC would want Waterson to fight for the belt because they think she's marketable, and with a win over Kowalkiewicz, a former title challenger, it would set herself up really nice to be in that position. Number 2, Josh Emmett versus Michael the Menace Johnson. Josh Emmett came into the UFC and quietly got a couple of decision victories, but shortly thereafter, he showed that he is no one to be messed with when he knocked out Ricardo Lamas on short notice as a pretty big underdog. Then the next time out, he goes in there with Jeremy Stephens, almost finishes Stephens before, of course, getting finished himself via knockout. He has taken over a year off from competition, so he's got that brain recuperated, ready to come in here against Michael Johnson and show what he has to offer, which is a big punching power with hooks in tight, kind of like that Team Alpha Male style where he's got the wrestling short squatty stance. He's going to come in with a looping overhand right, looking to get in close, and then damage his opponents with power shots. Once he's in that phone booth, his opponent, Michael the Menace Johnson, has kind of the opposite game where he's got the wrestling defense that he showed really well in a losing effort against Khabib Nurmagomedov, which was the first fight in a string of losses for him before dropping down to featherweight from lightweight. Before that Khabib fight, he showed us he's got absolutely enormous power with his very sharp, quick hands when he knocked out the next title challenger for the interim belt in the lightweight division, Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Josh Emmett and Michael Johnson are both the kind of fighter that are kill or be killed. So when you put them in the octagon against each other, where they're both going to be looking to throw big bungalows, and I think someone's going to likely end up sleeping on the canvas, I've got to put my papers on it. And number 1, Kevin Holland versus Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. This is in the #1 spot, partially because I think that it might be the most flying under the radar fight on this entire list, because Kevin Holland, who doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, is just 1-1 in his UFC career, but he is a really exciting fighter to watch. Just for instance, in his losing effort in his debut on short notice against Thiago Marreta Santos, he didn't get finished, and while eating a lot of gigantic ground and pound from the scary man in Santos, he was saying, man, that really hurts, please stop doing that. I know that this video series is all about what the fighters do in the octagon with their performances, with their mixed martial arts ability, but somebody that's got that kind of personality, I'm really drawn to them. Since that fight, he has cinched in a rear naked choke victory over John Phillips. He's got a long, loose kind of striking attack, and he's also pretty diverse on the ground. He's finished 12 of 13 victories, 6 via KO or TKO, and 6 via submission. I've got a lot of hype for this kid because he's only 26 years old, a ton of potential, and he's already extremely diverse. His opponent, Gerald Meerschaert, is a guy who, once again, I know I beat this into the ground, but he is kill or be killed. He has 6 fights in the octagon, and not a single one of them has even gone into the 3rd round. And 2 of his fights were performance of the night worthy. One, anaconda choke against Joe Gigliotti, and then a body kick TKO of Eric Spicely. GM3 does have a serviceable striking attack. He trains with a fantastic gym in Duke Rufus Sport, but his really big avenue to victory is getting the fight to the ground, whether it be pulling guard and then working some fantastic transitions and submission attempts from his back, or getting the fight to the ground with some takedown attempts, pressuring his opponent up against the fence. Wherever this fight takes place, it's going to be full of ebbs and flows, and it's going to be gripping the entire time. These guys are true mixed martial artists. I know they are weak in areas, but they can survive or finish an opponent wherever it is, which is my favorite thing about this fight. It's going to be back and forth for however long it lasts, and then we don't have to have the judges involved. What more could you possibly want for a battle of fisticuffs inside of an 8-sided cage? As always, I'm super appreciative for you making it to this point in the video. My question this time is, do you think that Barboza versus Gaethje will live up to the hype? We're going into it with a lot of expectation. When we come out of that fight, will it have been as tremendous? Does it have as many ebbs or flows as we expect that it will have? Will there be a finish? Tell me about that in the comment section down below. Please give this video a thumbs up, and of course I'll see you right here on this channel for the post-fight show, where I'm joined by Eddie Mercado and the Zane Simon. Thanks again, guys. Namaste. Namaste, namaste, namaste.